Okay, guess you can all see my screen. Hello.
It's fine now. I can see it. And I think other people are able to see it.
Okay, so tonight, like I said yesterday, it's going to be fully practical. So I'm not going to share any slide. I'm going to use one of the platforms I spoke about yesterday that I said I practice a lot on that platform. I'm going to use that platform today. So at least you would have a feel of how the platform looks like, and then how you can also use it for your advantage to do most of your learning and your practice. So a minute, I'm coming. Let me just start my copy machine. Then I just move straight there after a little talking. So today we'll look at vulnerabilities, what vulnerabilities are, and then we'll continue with the Nmap scanning. So we use the Nmap script scanning yesterday where we learned the NSC to scan a target, check for vulnerabilities, how to find exploits for these vulnerabilities, and how to actually exploit using one of the exploit tool I spoke about also yesterday called Metasploit. We are going to use that and to do that. It's going to be a quick session, but intense. Be asking me questions on the way. If you have any questions, just stop me, ask me, then we move forward. Right?
Okay, sir. I think it's fine. People can write down the questions in the chat. So when you'll be done with the thing, you can read them and then answer. I think it's fine for you because giving the opportunities to the people to talk, to ask the question with the audio, the voice we'll get more time. We'll spend more time. So I think it's better to write directly on the chat for those who have questions. Ceux qui ont des questions peuvent directement écrire dans le chat. À la fin, et en anglais, s'il vous plaît. Et à la fin, il va répondre. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So let's move straight to today's business. So I'm going to talk about what vulnerabilities are. So like I said, I'm using TryHackMe. So this is the room this is the platform I spoke about. We have one of the rooms called Vulnerabilities 101. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to just use that to explain what vulnerabilities and then a little bit about vulnerabilities. Then we move to our labs. Excuse me. So we'll talk about what vulnerabilities are. Then we'll talk about why they are worth learning about. We'll talk about how are vulnerabilities rated. Because you need this when you're writing your reports. Then we'll talk about the database for vulnerability research. When you want to do research on vulnerability, we'll talk about some of the databases that you can go there to do research. And then we would look at our practical bits, how we can scan for vulnerabilities, and then also what's the name? Exploit them. Then I'll talk about one more tool that I use in web application hacking or web application security pentest. I'll talk about one more tool that I use a lot. Then we'll look at how it works. And then we can call it a night and the end of our workshop for EOCON. Okay, so vulnerabilities. What are vulnerabilities? Vulnerability is simply the weakness or flaw in a system or in a design or in an implementation or how an application works. So in layman term or in simple terms, we say that a vulnerability is a mistake or a flaw that you find in the system. So if I've built a system to calculate 1 + 1, you all know that 1 + 1 is equal to 2. So then that is how I build my system, that is to calculate 1 + 1 and give us 2. If I'm able to manipulate the system or change something where now you enter 1 + 1 and it gives you 5, that is a weakness in the system, and that's a vulnerability. As simple as that. So that's the simple definition for a vulnerability. So you have a website. So let us bring it to cybersecurity or to our main topic. If you have, let's say, a website where your website is supposed to, let's say, when you open the website, the homepage is supposed to display something. Excuse me. When you click a button on the home page, it's supposed to take you to, let's say, the contact page, or there's a link for contact. When you click on the contact, it's supposed to take you to the contact page. If you are able to manipulate the system in such a way that when you click on a contact page, it takes you to another person's website, or when you click on a contact page, it does not open, but rather goes and open, let's say, the menu bar for you or the menu item for you. That is a vulnerability in the system. We have that. Another example is, let's say you have a system or a web application where you're supposed to enter a username and a password for it to grant you access. Now, if you find a way of not entering username and password, but you're able to bypass the username and password and still access, let's say, the dashboard, and still access admin routes like user creation, user deletion, and see users and all that. That is a weakness in the system, and that is what we call vulnerabilities. So it says that, for example, NIST, who is this? Who is this? Mr. Robert, please stop writing on the thing. So, for example, NIST defines a vulnerability as a weakness in an information system security procedure, internal controls, or implementation that could exploit or triggered by threat source. Vulnerability can originate from many factors, including poor design, like I said, poor design of an application, or an oversight of an intended action. So this says that this means that you are writing your application, in your design or in your code, you want 1 + 1 to be equal to 2, but you made a mistake where, yes, 1 + 1 equals to 2, but sometimes in the program, when you enter 1 + 1, it tells you 5. That's a vulnerability. That's not intentional, but it's a mistake. And yes, a mistake is still a vulnerability in the system. So some of the types of vulnerabilities that we have are operating system vulnerabilities. So this is the type of vulnerability. These type of vulnerability are found within the operating system and often results in privilege escalation. So operating system vulnerabilities most at times results in you escalating your privilege. So you'll be able to you are attacking a web application. You have access to shell through the web application. You also have a vulnerability on the web application. Once you have, let's say you gain a shell on the target system through the web application. Now you need to escalate your privilege. Let's say the privilege you are having is just for a user. You need to move to an admin so that you can do admin stuff. You need to now look for vulnerabilities that exist in the operating system itself that you can exploit. So that's where we have the operating system vulnerability. Then we have the misconfiguration based or configuration based vulnerability. This type of vulnerability stems from an incorrectly configured application or service. For example, a web server exposing customer details. So misconfiguration is this is one of the prevalent vulnerabilities that you can find. Misconfiguration. Yesterday, when we looked at the Google Docking and the Google Doc script that query I did, and we're getting a whole lot of vulnerabilities. This is because of misconfiguration. Applications were not configured well and they were left on the internet, and then it results in some vulnerabilities. The next type is weak or default credentials, and this is just another type of vulnerability where you have weak passwords or weak credentials or default credentials. When I say default credentials, something like let's say yes, something like yesterday what we saw, FTP. FTP default has a login called anonymous, where you don't enter any username, you don't enter any password, or you just enter anonymous and you are allowed access. That's the default credential. We have routers. Most routers are having their default credentials to be admin and admin. So if you set up your router and then you leave the default credentials without changing them, anyone else can have access to your router by entering these default credentials, and this is called a risk of vulnerability. So this is what default or weak. And a weak credential is you set up your system, and then your admin password is admin123. That's a weak password that can be cracked within a few seconds. The next one is the application logic vulnerability. So this is a type of vulnerability. This vulnerability results as in poor design application. For example, poorly implemented authentication mechanism that may result to an attacker being able to impersonate a user. So this application logic vulnerability is this kind of vulnerability is application logic vulnerability. So check this. You would sometimes see something like this. Then you have let's say user equals to 2. Something like this. You hit enter and then it gives you, let's say, a user 2. Now you would what is the name? Sorry. Now when you change those to 3 and hit enter, you see that the system now changes your user and then gives you the user with ID 3. It means you can use this URL to be changing and reading other users' information. This is what we call the application logic vulnerability. So this is a vulnerability that exists in the application logic itself. That is the code that was being written. Then we have the final one, the human factor, which you would never take out of it. That's a human factor vulnerability. And this is a vulnerability that leverage human behavior. For example, phishing emails are designed to trick humans into believing they are legitimate. So we have the human factor vulnerability also. So you can take care of these 3, these 4, but this will still exist. So we have to look at that one. And this is the most dangerous and most critical vulnerability that you can think of, the human factor. You can build your best system, you can build a best system, you can have the best infrastructure, but the human failure, if the human being gives out the admin, or the admin gives out his credentials, your system is doomed. So this is the most critical vulnerability you can think of. Now we'll look at the scoring system when it comes to vulnerabilities. This I will not go into details or deep, but we have this. We have the none, which I most of the time call it informational. So when I'm writing my report, if I see a vulnerability that does not impact anything, or this vulnerability does not impact anything, but at least it needs to be fixed. It is an informational vulnerability that needs to be reported for them to fix. Then we have the low vulnerabilities. We have the medium, the high, and the critical. I'll not touch too much into this. Let's look at the vulnerability database. Then we move straight to our practical. So now we have some databases that you can search for vulnerabilities. One is the NVD, the National Vulnerability Database, and then ExploitDB. Yesterday we looked at ExploitDB. Excuse me. Yesterday we looked at ExploitDB, where we went to get some Google Docs queries. So we have the National Vulnerability Database, and this is how it looks like. I'll share the link. Okay, so this is how the National Vulnerability Database looks like. So you see, it has vulnerabilities per year and per month up to 1988. So as at 1988, they were still looking for vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities are still existing. So even in 2021, October, if I click on October right now, you can see the number of vulnerabilities that has been reported just in October. So you see, just October 2021, see the number of vulnerabilities in system that has been reported. So this is how the CVEs are written. So if you see a CVE written, let's say CVE 2020-6485, it means that that CVE was discovered, or that vulnerability was discovered in 2020, and then that is the number 865 vulnerability that was discovered in 2020. So this that you see, for instance, this is CVE 2021-42716. So it's this vulnerability was discovered in 2021, and then it is the 42,716 vulnerability that was found in 2021. In 2021 alone, we have seen 42,716 vulnerabilities, and the list still keeps going because October has not ended yet. We'll move to November. And we'll still see more vulnerabilities. So this is how the vulnerabilities looks like. So if you see a vulnerability like, okay, so if you see a vulnerability like this, a minute, I'm coming. Where's my whiteboard? So when you see this vulnerability, CVE 2015-0607, it means that this vulnerability was found in 2015, and it was the 607th vulnerability that was found in the year 2015. So this is how the vulnerabilities are written. So if you see in any report that has been written, okay, this particular vulnerability is CVE 2010-606, it means that vulnerability was discovered first in 2010. Now the next one is exploit DB. I think that one I showed it yesterday. And in exploit DB, you can find for vulnerabilities. So you let's say you run an Nmap scan, and then you got a service, and want to check whether that service is vulnerable. You can just come and put it here. Let's say Apache HTTP server. That's a 2.4. And hit enter. You see, I have Apache. So this is one vulnerability. And with exploit DB, it does not give you just the vulnerability, but it gives you the vulnerability and its exploits that you can use. So if I click on it like this, I'm going to get what the CVE. So you see the CVE. CVE 2021-42013. So this CVE was found when? In 2021. And now the 42,013th vulnerability in 2021. And you have what? The exploit here. Sometimes these CVEs are already loaded into Metasploit. We'll look at Metasploit very soon. So you can just search for the either you download it, or you can just search for this, and maybe you can just go and search for it in Metasploit. If it has been loaded in Metasploit, then you can just use the Metasploit model to stage your attack. Okay, so now let's go to straight to our practical. Can you see my Kali machine? Can you see my terminal? You can see my terminal. Okay, good, sure. So now, come a minute. So this is going to be my attack machine or my attack IP address. So I'm going to attack this IP address. We already know our first, what was our first process when it comes to ethical hacking, reconnaissance. We studied it yesterday. So I'm going to start with reconnaissance. So this, I'm going to take you through, let me say, the methodology, the pentest methodology from reconnaissance to exploitation. So I'm going to take you through it. So we are going to look at our first of our reconnaissance, gather information about this target. When we are done with the information gathering, we'll look for vulnerabilities. We go and search for these vulnerabilities, search what kind of vulnerabilities that are associated with the ports that are open. We look at that, and then we come and look at exploiting these vulnerabilities. So this is my IP. I've copied it. So I come, and then I use my nmap that we spoke of yesterday. I use -A, I'll use -V. That's for verbose. And then I'll paste my IP address. Now I wait for my scan to finish. Then now I can now go and search for vulnerabilities pertaining to this. Let's give our scan some time for it to finish running. Now, I guess we remembered about our NSC, the scripts to look for vulnerabilities. When we are done with this, we'll run that one also to see if we can find any vulnerabilities associated with any of the ports. Let me just run that here. But I don't need the dash today. Okay, so my first scan has finished. So we have these ports open: 135, 139, 445, 80. We know that our machine is running what? Windows 7 professional service pack. So let's be putting some information down. OS is Okay, we have MSWPT server running on port 3389. We don't have so much information. We know that it's running 4.445. SMB is open. We have one name already. We have John PC. So this is a good information to note, because we know that now we have a user. We have a user called John PC. We've already taken this down. Yes, we have a user called John PC. And that's all the information we have here. Now let's look at our vulnerable script we also run. And that one will give us vulnerabilities. Now I'm getting some vulnerabilities. It tells me that vulnerable 3387 RDP vulnerability MS12020 remote desktop protocol vulnerability. And that's the CVE, what we just spoke about. So you see, this is the CVE 2012-0152. It means this CVE was found in 2012. And that was the 52nd vulnerability that was found. You can just copy, come to Google, and then we can come and read more about that particular vulnerability. The National Vulnerability Database. So those of you who asked, because I normally get this question a lot. Niihack, I have scanned a website, or I finished running Nmap. I've gotten some vulnerabilities. How do I hack? How do I hack it? After scanning the ports and getting the open ports, you are not done. And it is not an automatic thing that, okay, once I scan and I get port 80 open, and I've seen Niihack or I've seen somebody exploiting port 80 before. So that means that once port 80 is open, then it is exploitable, or I can be able to exploit it. No. You have to now find vulnerabilities around these open ports. So you have to do your research. That's why I tell most of my students that if you want to venture into this field, then you have to be a good researcher. So you see, it has a description of the vulnerability. Remote desktop protocol service, that's RDP service, in Microsoft Server 2008 R2. Severity, it's there. Weakness enumeration, improper input validation, affected systems. It gives you a brief, a detailed write up about that particular vulnerability. It's MS12020. Now let's look at the other vulnerabilities. So we have other vulnerabilities. That is the MS12020. That is the remote desktop. We are still on the same one. Let's start the CVE. Then we have another one. We have another vulnerability in SMB. And if I hope we all heard about the Eternal Blue vulnerability that led to WannaCry ransomware. That is the vulnerability that exists in SMB. MS17010. The CVE is this. It was found in 2017. So you see, this is it. SMB version 1 server in Microsoft Windows. That's why if you are still using Windows 7 or your servers are still running Windows 7, you have to check if your port 445 is open. You have to be careful. You have to check for this kind of vulnerability where it can be exploited. It has a publicly exploit around, public exploit lying everywhere, and that is it. The severity is what? High. So if you find this kind of vulnerability in a system and you're writing a report, you put the severity scoring as high. So if you even don't know the severity scoring of a vulnerability you found, you can just come to this database, the National Vulnerability Database, and come and look for the severity score. So now, the next thing we are going to do is, now we know this remote code execution vulnerability in SME version 1, and this is the code MS17010. Now, what we do is, so let me just put these two down. We have ones, we have the MS, and then we have the MS17010. So these are the two vulnerabilities we have. Now let's do a research on them. Sometimes you can just add exploits and see if there are any public exploits around. And Rapid7 is the developers for a Metasploit. So if you are looking for a Metasploit model and you search and you see Rapid7, just go there. You would have the Metasploit model there because they are the builders. So they're just giving you solutions and a brief description. Now let's look at MS17010. You can get exploits for it. That's the eternal blue vulnerability. And this was what, like I said earlier, this was what made way for WannaCry ransomware. And you see it has exploits available. So now we are going to look at how to use Metasploit to run some of these exploits on these vulnerabilities. So we run Metasploit MSF console. I use the -Q because I don't want it to display those kind of information. If you don't use -Q, this is how it works. -Q means run Metasploit in quiet mode. If you don't use the -Q, it will give you starting, then print a whole lot of stuff on your screen before it gives you opens the model itself for you. But when you run the -Q, you see how it works. So you see, without the -Q, which is the quiet mode, this is how it works. Excuse me. Now let me exit. And then run Metasploit with -Q. And you see that it will not throw any noise, you don't throw anything, just open the model for you, as simple as that. That's why I like using the -Q, but it's for your own preference. What do you want to use? You want to see stuff so that you can just see that, yeah, I'm coming to start an action movie. Fine. So this is how the -Q works. Now, all you need to do is, so this how let's go a bit about Metasploit. So you want to search something, you can just type search, and then let's say remote code execution. Or let's just type remote code and just hit enter. Now Metasploit will look through its database and give you any word or any exploit that has the word remote code. So you see, I have a whole lot. If you're able to see with the one that you want, and each one of them has a number attached to it. So you see, we have 563, 567, 538. If you see the one that you want, if let's say you are looking for Embraco CMS remote code execution and it's number 522, all you do is you just come down and then you come and type use, then you type 522. And then now it will pick that kind of exploit for you. So you see, it just picks it for you. So that's one way you can search for databases. You can search for exploits from Metasploit. Now with Google, sorry. Now with Google, if I search on Google and I get Rapid7 will give you the correct exploits to use. So you see, it gives me use the MSF, what I should even type, everything I should do to give it to me. So all I'll do is I'll just type use, and I already have the model here already. I don't need to search it again. But if you want to search, you can just come to search, then maybe MS 17010. And you see, it searches it for you. So you have the MS 17010. All exploits associated to that. What I'm looking for is this. Exploit Windows SMB, Eternal Blue. So it is number what? 0. So all I'll do is I'll just type use 0. Then I have this. Sorry, I mean. Sorry. So now, this is how Metasploit looks like. Let me just clear everything. Now I have my exploit. I've loaded my exploit. Now what next do you do? The next thing you need to do is you have to now set options, because you have to now feed in information to it so that it can now exploit your system. You can't just do this and then just run exploit and then it work. No, you have to feed in some information. What is the IP address of your target? What are you looking for and all that? So you just type options. Options would, let me just reduce the screen a bit. I hope you can see. So the options now tells you the kind of information you need to feed into the exploit for this to work or for this to run. Now it asks for what? Our host, our port, SMB domain, SMB path, SMB user, verify arc, verify target. Now look at the required. Required is like, it's like you are filling a form and you have that asterisk beside it. It means that you need to put in something before the thing will work. You can't bypass it. So if you have required yes, it means that these things are necessary before you can run your exploit. The no means they are optional. So take note of that. So now we need to set our R host. Our port is already set, 445. It's already there for you. We need to set our R host. If the SMB is on a different port, they need to change this 445, the default port, and then put in the port that SMB is running on. So now we need to set this first. So how to set your options is like this. You type set, then your option name is what? R hosts. You can either do it, it's not case sensitive, so you can either put small letters or capital letters. R hosts. Then now you come and feed the host. Now what is our host IP? These are our host IP. I copy it and I come and paste. And I hit enter. Then it tells me our host has been set to this. Now what else do we need to set? We have set yes. The yes, they are already set. We are good with that. Now we have our L host and our L port. Now this L host is your local host. Yes, let me say this. R host means your remote host. So your remote host is always your target or your target machine, your victim machine. Now the L host is the local host. That is your machine. Now this is my IP address, but I'm in a lab environment. So I am running a VPN. So I need to check my VPN IP to put in here, because that's the IP I'm running with now. But this is my local IP address I am using. So let me just run IPA and check mine. So now, yes, this is my VPN. That's the interface is running on TAN 0. So this is my IP address that I should be using. So let me copy this. Let me come here. Sorry. So now I need to set then L host. And I enter my IP. Good. Now I've set my two things that I need to set. Now let's check if it is true. We have set them. So now you see now our host has been set. Port is set. The verify architecture is set. Verify target is set. Now my L host is set to my VPN IP address. And then now my local port, that's the port I want to communicate with my remote port, is port 4444. You can change it if you want to. So this is the port I am listening on. So now the next thing you do is either you type exploit or you type run. And then you leave Metasploit to do its own stuff for you. If it gains, it's able to exploit the system, it will exploit the system and then give you that I've been able to exploit the system. You just sit back and then you just wait for your exploit to run. So you see, if this kind of vulnerability exists on your server, anybody at all will be able to exploit it, because there's already a known exploit in the public domain already. That is why you need to patch this and then update your servers from Windows 7 to a higher version. Because in the higher versions, this vulnerability has been patched. If you have any question, you can ask in the chat page, so that the host can pick it up and then ask as the exploit runs. Now it tells me that please, my exploit has run successfully, and now I'm having a Metasploit shell. So now what you do is I have a shell, and I hope you are familiar with this Windows System 32. So you can now communicate with the. So now I'm communicating with the server. The directory, and I have access to this directory. So let's look at users. Well, we saw a user, if you remember, called John. So you see John is there. So truly we have a user called John. So this is how so if you look at the steps, we scan, we look for the vulnerabilities, we research on the vulnerabilities to see if we can find exploits. We got an exploit using from Metasploit. We use Metasploit, and then now we have gained access to the system. Now I don't need to do anything else. I'm just showing you this. Let me just exit. Here. Now, let's look at the web server, how it looks like, so that you understand. A minute, I'll open my web server. Oh gosh. Can you give me a minute? Let me just log in into my web server so that I can explain what directory enumeration is. Oh, sorry, my internet is a bit slow, so my web server is just taking a bit of time. Okay, good. So this is my web server. So these are the files that are on my web server. So the web server is where you store your web application files. So my domain name that's my website. This is where the files for my website resides. Now, what I'm referring to as directory enumeration is now there is a tool that you can use to run to check for these things, to look for these things, because something like backup, something like documents, something like HT access, samples, and all that, you will not be able to find it on my website when you come here. I just have home, about, services, tools, and contact us. You will not find anything again. But all of these files exist on my web server. So we have tools that you can use to enumerate these files. And if the permissions are not set well, you would be able to get access to them. So we'll look at the tool, and then we'll enumerate a web server, and then look for hidden directories that are on the web server. So this is our target machine. Now, I'll not go into scanning because that's not my focus yet. So I said there's a tool called Dare Search. So all you can do is you can just come to, let me just look for it here so that I can share with you. Dare Search. So I've shared it on the chat platform. So this is the link I shared. So it's as simple as this. This is how we install it. It's as simple as just do git clone, Dare Search, then you just cd. So okay, here, git clone Dare Search, cd into, after it has finished cloning, you cd into it, do cd Dare Search, and then you run pip3 install requirements. When you are done, that's it. This is the syntax for it. Python 3, it's one with Python 3. So you do Python 3, then Dare Search.py, then dash u would pick the URL that you want to run the enumeration on, and then dash e is the extensions that you want the web server to start enumerating for. So let's look at that. So let me just cd into Dare Search. Then I have, if you check the files in there, so you have this Dare Search.py. So you do Python 3, Dare Search.py, then -u. -u is our IP address. But let me sound this caution. Now, let's check our IP address. So first of all, before you do all this, you need to run your nmap scan and then find where your web server is, or which port your web server is running on. Then you can now point that to your -u. So here I know, okay, my website is running here on port 80. So my web server is on port 80. So then I can come and enter it here. As simple as that. C+ application that uses the XHTML and all that. Yeah, you need to put in XHTML and all that. So you just hit enter, and then now you leave it for it to do its search. What it does, what their search does is, so there are other similar tools like their search, like Debastar, like Govastar, like Deb, and all that. I like using their search. That's why I'm showing their search. So you see, there are all these directories on the what is the name on the web server. But see, the status is what 403. You cannot access it. We are looking for the one that the status is 200, and those ones come in green. Those are the ones that you can access. What their set does is it runs an enumeration, or it does scanning using the what is it? Okay, that didn't show you. By using what is the name? Rockq.txt to do your enumeration for you. So good. We have 200. So you see, we have a hidden directory here. Without their search or without running the actual enumeration, I don't think you ever find any information about development here. If you come to view page source, there's nothing. Check our dev notes if you need what to work on. There's nothing showing here. So if you don't run their search, you end up, and that search is part of reconnaissance and information gathering. So you end up saying that, oh, okay, so there's nothing running on the website. Oh, the website is even down. So okay, that's it. Then you just write to report that, oh, I checked that your website is down. You cannot do anything. There's no vulnerability on it. But their search is giving you some information. Now it tells you that there's a route called /development. Now let's look at what is there. Now you see there are files there. I click on the dev and I have some information. It says, it's going to say SMB has been confirmed key. I got Apache set up. We'll put in our content later, J. So we are seeing that there are two users. One is K and one is J. We have j.txt. For J, I've been auditing the content of /etc/shadow to make sure we don't have any weak credentials. And I was able to crack your hash really easily. You know our password policy, so please follow it. Change your password ASAP. So here we have a clue that J, the user who is J, is having a weak password. That can be what? Cracked easily. So we can crack the user easily. So this is even information that you gather for you to have a more wider or more attacking vectors. So this is where and I'll not go further. I just wanted to talk about these tools that are used to check for vulnerabilities. So this is a vulnerability that exists. So if you have a web application or you are doing a web pen testing, some of the first things you can do is run their search on your web server to look for vulnerable directories that are left without any permission on the web server. And here we can even see that there's a directory listing vulnerability here. without even scanning. I just even know that it is running Apache 2.4.18 Ubuntu server. And that's the web server it's running. Thank you. And this is the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, please let's ask, and then we'll call it a night. Time is far gone. Sorry for delays once again.
Okay, Eric, thank you for the presentation. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Eric?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, thanks for the presentation.
Welcome.
So now, people that have questions, they can just drop the questions in the chat. Apparently, there are no questions for the moment. Si vous avez des questions, bien vouloir les écrire dans le chat. Eric attend pour les répondre. So we'll wait like 5 minutes if there are questions. And then if there are no questions, we will close the last presentation for this evening.
Sure. Welcome, Daryl. Merci pour la session de formation. Ok, merci beaucoup, merci beaucoup. Okay, what is your thought about Nessus and OpenVAS? Okay, so Nessus and OpenVAS are web application scanners. So they are vulnerability scanners. They are not pen testing tools. Sometimes people misinterpret them. They are vulnerability scanners. And these vulnerability scanners sometimes gives you true positives, true negatives, and all that. So what sometimes companies do, which I always have issue with, is you hire a company to come and run Nexus or OpenVAS, run a pen test on your organization, run a pen test on your web application, and then they'll end up running just Nexus or OpenVAS, and then come and present to you the report that they've done the pen test. No. So Nexus and pen tests are vulnerability scanners. They are used to search for vulnerabilities. You want to do pen tests, look for the vulnerabilities, and then try to exploit those vulnerabilities that the Nexus and or OpenVAS give report it gave you. Then write a report for that. So yes, and Nexus and OpenVAS, I think Nexus is you have the community version. It's a good. They are all good tools. I don't like to. They are good tools that you can use to run vulnerability scan and then generate a good report, like generate an automated good report for you. How do you select your IP for the pen test? Thanks. Which pen test? If you are doing a pen test for an organization, the organization will give you the IP as part of the scope. I don't know which pen test we are talking about, so please come clearly. Okay, so the first one. So I used, like I said, I used a platform called Niihack. Let me just share my screen so that you see the platform. So I use Niihack. Niihack is a platform where, like I said yesterday, one of the platforms I recommend that you can learn and have fun, try your hands, practice. It has even various learning paths. If you are starting afresh, you can go to pre-security. You have great rooms there for you to learn. Then we have it. They recently added a part called junior penetration tester. That's intermediate. Then we have complete beginner. We have cyber defense. We have offensive pen testing. We have CompTIA pen test plus. If you want to write OSCP, this is the room that you should be playing around with. If you want to write CompTIA pen test plus, this is the room you should be playing around with. Then we have a room for web fundamentals. You want to go into blue teaming, this is the room you should be playing with. So this is how I select my IP address. I just pick any lab and then I pick it generates IP address for me, and then I start having fun. Thank you. How do you prioritize vulnerabilities you try to exploit? So, like I said earlier, some vulnerabilities that exist on a port. So you run a vulnerability scan, or you run a vulnerabilities check on let's say network A. You will see that port 80 is open, port 445 is open. It's vulnerable to, let's say, SMB. Sometimes you might see the same thing on network B, vulnerable, but you try to exploit and it will not work. So it is not automatic that once I've been able to exploit port 80 on machine A, it means that on machine B, if port 80 is open, then I should be able to exploit it. So the way you do our prioritization is, first of all, that's why note taking is good. Get all your vulnerabilities. Then now start doing research on them. When you do research on them, the ones that you think you can exploit easily, that is where you start from. Or the ones that there's already a publicly known exploit around, that is where you start from. And then you start searching. It is not know it all thing. Sometimes you do try and error. You try this, you try this, you try this, you try this, and then you'll be listing now which of them that are exploitable. Then you can now sit down and then start your exploitation. So that is why I advise that when we are doing a pen test project, first of all, get all your information, the vulnerabilities, write it down, then write a report on that. Then now you can sit down and structure how now you want to exploit the system per the vulnerabilities you've gotten. How to choose a port to exploit after line. So this is what I just explained. So how to choose the port to exploit? Yes, you, like I said, you do a research on the vulnerabilities that exist on those ports. If you're able to get a quick or you're able to get, so you start with the quickest, the one that you can exploit quickly. You exploit those ones. But sometimes some of the exploits that are vulnerable that you can exploit quickly, sometimes you exploit them and you get some information that would help you to further on exploit the system or gain more privileges. So look for the ports that are that their vulnerabilities can easily be exploited. So you have like what we did. You have two vulnerabilities: MS 12.0.10 and then MS 17.0.10. And I saw that MS 17.0.10 is having a publicly known exploit and on even Metasploit. So first of all, first I'll go and exploit that one. Check whether it is vulnerable. When I exploit and it goes through, now I have a shell. And then now I'll now start thinking about how to escalate my privileges with the other vulnerabilities I have. Thank you. Which one is the easiest spot to exploit and will take less time, resources, and effort? No, for that one you can't say. Look, can you hear me? Yes. So there's nothing like an easier spot. It depends on the vulnerabilities that exist on it. So it depends on the vulnerability that exists on the port. You can exploit port 80 within 2 minutes on network A, and on network B, port 80 will be open and it's not vulnerable. So there's no easier spot. No, you have to check, do your vulnerabilities checks, do your research, and then make sure that you can exploit it. As simple as that. Thank you. So this is my LinkedIn name. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have other questions, you can just hit me up there, and then we'll get talking. I don't want to take much of your time here. So if the host is okay, you can call it. So host, please share the presentation start link with them. Or let me see if I have it. A minute. Okay, I think it's here. So that's it. Okay, so goodbye and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Okay, Eric, thank you for the presentation. As usual, as yesterday, it was interesting. I hope everyone had collected the information that we wanted, and we hope to see you very soon. Actually, concerning the other presentations, tomorrow there is NASA Willy Coffee that will present something about the Nmap. So we hope everyone here will be also connected. It will take place, the presentation will take place at 5 p.m. to end up at 7 p.m. So thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for the participation, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Eric, I hope also you will be connected for the conference this Saturday.
Sure, I'll be there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome.
And goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.